He moved into a quiet Texas neighborhood for peace. But when the HOA president secretly used his eco-car wash and got a stinky surprise, all bets were off. What started as a silent battle over neighborhood rules spiraled into a full-blown scandal, exposing corruption, lies, and one man's perfectly engineered revenge. This is how Mason Carter reclaimed more than just his driveway. He reclaimed the community. Mason Carter wasn't looking to make enemies when he moved into Brookstone Hollow. He just wanted a reset. At 39, newly divorced and emotionally drained, the quiet, high-end neighborhood in Texas seemed like the perfect place to rebuild green, secure, well-kept, peaceful. At least on paper, by trade. Mason was a systems engineer who specialized in designing eco-conscious water recycling car wash units for residential use. It wasn't glamorous, but it was meaningful. He believed in sustainability, in smart technology, in design that served both people and the planet. His new home's 3-car garage became his sanctuary and his lab. Within weeks, he'd installed a fully automated, closed-loop car wash system that used 60% less water than any commercial station. No runoff, no waste. But Brookstone Hollow wasn't governed by science or facts. It was ruled by a woman named Cunningham. She was 45, wealthy by inheritance, and feared by reputation, feared by. Karen was the HOA president, an unelected monarch dressed in floral Versace, who attended neighborhood inspections like they were royal processions. Her late husband had made his fortune in luxury real estate development, and she carried herself like every square foot of the community bore his name. Mason met her for the first time at a welcome mixer held in the community clubhouse. She appeared beside him without warning, holding a wine glass and wearing a tight, disapproving smile. "I understand you've been tinkering with some sort of garage car wash," she said. No greeting. "You should know that washing vehicles is against HOA code. It harms the water table." Mason, calm by nature and precise by profession, replied gently. "Actually, it's a closed-loop system. Uses 40% less water. Completely recycled." Karen sipped. "Still a wash, isn't it? And we don't make exceptions, even for innovators." She turned and walked away. That was the moment Mason knew this wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a kingdom. And Karen saw herself as queen. For weeks, nothing happened. But late one night, Mason's system log flagged an unauthorized activation. Curious. He checked the garage cam at 2:17 am. Karen Cunningham had pulled her spotless white Porsche into his driveway, keyed in a few buttons on the touchscreen, and initiated a full wash cycle. Then she drove off like it was nothing. No note, no knock, no shame. She had used his system, secretly, illegally. Mason stared at the screen and smiled, the way an engineer does when an experiment fails for the first time. Not out of anger, but clarity. He had options. Instead of confrontation, Mason chose design. He reprogrammed the system to automatically switch to a separate reservoir when unauthorized users activated it. This tank held harmless, but extremely pungent gray water, recycled from previous uses. Safe for car paint, but impossible to mass consent. He left the garage door slightly ajar. He let the bait sit. 3 days later, the trap worked. Karen's Porsche rolled into his garage. Alone, entitled, unaware. The cameras recorded everything. 5 minutes in, the water sprayed across the vehicle like normal, but the smell was unmistakable. That night, the Porsche parked in her driveway. By morning, every resident within 3 houses could smell it. Detailers couldn't fix it. The stench clung to the air vents, the upholstery, even the undercarriage. Karen's prized luxury car had become a rolling compost bin. Word spread fast. Mason never gloated. But his friend Dave Martinez, an IT engineer and longtime resident, could barely contain himself. "She treated you like a tenant," Dave said, laughing. "You turned her into an example." But Karen wasn't finished. Humiliated, she scheduled an emergency HOA meeting and arrived with a stack of accusations: environmental code violations, unsafe water usage, private enterprise on residential property. She framed herself as the victim of sabotage. What she didn't expect was a counteroffensive. Mason arrived with his lawyer, Sarah Whitman, a 38-year-old environmental law expert who'd quietly been building a case, not just to defend Mason, but to expose Karen's long-standing abuse of power. They weren't alone. Over a dozen neighbors attended in support. They brought evidence-inflated HOA fees, arbitrary fines, threats over holiday decorations, illegal inspections. One elderly couple revealed they'd been fined $600 for planting tomatoes. Another had been reported for audible laughter after 9 p.m. Then Sarah dropped the bombshell: a financial audit. Karen had funneled tens of thousands in HOA funds to a construction firm called Pinnacle Developments. Public records showed the company was still co-owned by her brother-in-law. Mason's team presented receipts, statements, even HOA emails approving emergency repairs that had never happened. Some invoices billed $8,000 for premium mulch. The boardroom went silent. Karen attempted a last-ditch effort, playing a video that appeared to show Mason tampering with her vehicle. Sarah didn't flinch. "Deepfake," she said calmly. Dave stepped forward and, with a clicker and projector, walked the room through side-by-side comparisons, frame-by-frame inconsistencies, and forensic video analysis proving the footage was manipulated. Karen had tried to fabricate evidence. It backfired. The vote was unanimous. Karen was removed as HOA president. Several of her allies resigned hours later. The police didn't arrest her that night. But the investigation into HOA fund misappropriation began immediately. Within a month, Mason was elected as interim HOA president. He declined the salary. His first act was installing a digital transparency portal for all HOA spending. Then he rewrote key bylaws to support sustainable projects, protect residents from overreach, and encourage community participation. Brookstone Hollow began to change. Lawns turned into native gardens. People talked to their neighbors. HOA meetings became productive. And for the first time in years, no one was afraid of their own mailbox. Late one evening, Mason and Sarah sat on his rooftop deck. The Texas sky was velvet and open, a bottle of wine between them. Sarah smiled. "You know, if Karen had just asked nicely or admitted fault, none of this would have happened." Mason shrugged. "She thought rules were weapons. I just made sure they pointed both ways." They laughed. Below them, sprinklers hissed quietly, fed by recycled rainwater. In the end, Mason didn't need revenge. He had something better: design, evidence, and just enough pressure recycled, refined, and finally released.